You're a Capricorn. And from the outside, people think you've got it all under control. You're focused, reliable, hardworking, always 5 steps ahead. They say you're strong, mature, solid, but what they don't realize is that you had to be. You weren't praised for being expressive. You were praised for being composed. You weren't allowed to fall apart. You were expected to hold it together. For everyone. So now, as an adult, you don't feel safe unless everything is handled, organized, planned, controlled. Not because you love control, but because uncertainty used to feel like danger. Let's go back. Most Capricorns learned early that love had conditions, that attention came with performance, that respect had to be earned, not given. So you stepped up. You got serious. You made yourself useful. And you stopped asking for things that didn't seem realistic, like rest, softness, or being comforted just because you needed it. You started keeping your feelings quiet, not because you didn't feel them, but because they didn't feel safe. You started showing up like the adult in the room, even when you were still a kid, and you never really stopped. Now people come to you for answers, for stability, for leadership, and you give it. But the part no one sees is how tired you are, how often you feel like you're the only one holding it all up, how many times you've said, "I'm good," while silently breaking. Because here's what they don't understand. Capricorn doesn't cry when it hurts. You cry when it's over. You suppress everything until it feels safe to feel. And for most of your life, that moment never really came. So now you walk through life like a fortress, protected, efficient, unbothered. But under that armor is someone who's been disappointed so many times that you stopped expecting anyone else to come through. You don't depend on people, not because you don't want to, but because you can't afford to. You've learned that if something matters, you better be the one to handle it. And that mindset, it built your power, but it also built your walls. You show love by doing, by fixing, by building. But when it comes to your own needs, you downplay them. You tell yourself, it's not that bad. You keep going, even when your soul is screaming for a break. And that silence, that self-denial, that becomes your wound, because you keep carrying the weight, and people start assuming you want to. You make it look easy. So they stop checking in. They stop asking if you're okay. They forget that under all that strength is someone who's still human, still tired, still hoping that someone someday might take the weight off your shoulders, even just for a second. But you don't say that out loud, because Capricorn doesn't like pity. You don't like being perceived as weak. You don't like being vulnerable when you haven't already solved the problem. So you keep pushing, keep working, keep winning. But here's the truth. Winning doesn't always feel like peace. Success doesn't always feel like fulfillment. Sometimes it just feels like survival with better branding. You're ambitious, but not because you're shallow or obsessed with status. You're ambitious because that's how you prove to yourself that you're safe, that you matter, that your pain had a purpose. And somewhere deep down, you believe that if you just build enough, you'll finally be allowed to rest. But you don't have to wait that long. You're a Capricorn. You weren't made to carry the world alone. You were made to build it with support. And until you let yourself receive what you keep giving to everyone else, you'll always feel like something's missing, even when everything looks perfect on paper. Let's talk about your flaw, because every Capricorn has one, and it's not your work ethic. It's that you don't know how to stop proving your worth long enough to just be loved. You measure your value in output, what you do, what you provide, what you achieve. Even when no one's watching, you're still performing for some invisible standard that was set way before you could even name it. And that's the trap. You feel responsible for everything, even when it's not yours to carry. other people's emotions, their stability, their success. You step in, fix, organize, handle, but when you need support, you fall silent. You downplay it. You tell yourself, handle it later. You push through like always. But what does that create? A version of you that everyone relies on, but no one really sees. You become the strong one, the provider, the one who always gets it done. And while part of you takes pride in that, another part of you is exhausted, because being needed isn't the same as being cared for, and you know the difference. You feel it. You just don't talk about it. Capricorns carry pain in a very specific way. You tuck it under success. You hide it behind strategy. You control every other area of your life just so you don't have to face the emotional part that feels chaotic. And in love, that pattern gets louder. You want loyalty, stability, depth. But you've trained yourself to expect disappointment, so you show up guarded, careful, sometimes even cold. You don't fall fast because you're already calculating how it might end. And when you do love, you love through action. You show up, provide, plan, protect. But what you struggle with is letting someone show up for you. You downplay your needs. You hide when you're hurting. You don't ask for help, not because you don't want it, but because you don't trust it'll actually come. So you attract people who like your strength, but can't handle your softness. People who expect you to keep it all together, even when you're quietly falling apart. People who feel safe around you, but never realize how unsafe you feel around them emotionally. And when it starts to feel too one-sided, you pull back, quietly, no drama, just space, distance, emotional walls. Because you'd rather be alone than be vulnerable and unsupported. You'd rather carry your pain solo than risk letting someone drop it. But here's what most people don't realize about you. Your silence isn't apathy. It's survival. It's how you learn to stay in control when the world felt unpredictable. People misunderstand that. They think you're cold, detached, unemotional. But the truth is, you feel everything. You just file it away so it doesn't interfere with what needs to get done. Because Capricorn doesn't stop just because they're tired. You stop when the job's done, even if the job is never ending. Now let's talk about your work. Because this is where your pressure hits its peak. You're built for greatness. There's no denying that. You see systems before they exist. You build futures from scratch. You lead. You manage, you climb. But what most people don't see is the fear underneath that drive. The fear of being average, the fear of being overlooked, the fear of being vulnerable and unsuccessful, because in your mind, that's failure with no buffer. So you overwork, you overplan, you set goals just to chase them, not even to celebrate them, and then you move on. Next task, next goal, next win. And at some point, you stop even noticing that you're still waiting for permission to feel proud of yourself. But no one's coming to give that to you. You have to give it to yourself. And that begins the glow up. Because your glow up isn't about making more money or gaining more respect. You've already done that. It's about letting yourself feel safe even when you're not producing. It's about resting without guilt. Feeling without shame, receiving without proving. The real glow-up for a Capricorn is softness. It's ease. It's letting yourself be loved, not because you've earned it, but because you're already worthy. It starts when you say no to what drains you, when you stop being available for people who only see your value in what you do, when you let people into your real life. Not just the one you've curated and controlled. Because when a Capricorn stops performing strength and starts living in truth, they become unstoppable in a whole new way. Let's get into the real blueprint behind your growth, because you don't move like everyone else. Capricorn doesn't just hustle, you build, and every brick matters. But if you're laying them on the wrong timeline, you'll keep building and wondering why it's not hitting like it should. So here's the truth. You move in 9-year personal cycles. Each year comes with a different energy, purpose, and pace. And if you align with it, you get momentum. If you fight it, you burn out. Let's break that down with your numbers. If you were born on January 3rd, 2006, and it's 2025, 1 plus 3 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 equals 13. 1 plus 3 equals 4. You're in a personal year 4 right now. That means the universe is putting you in grind mode. But it's not just about working hard. It's about working smart, structuring, committing, laying the foundation. Let's look at the full 9-year cycle so it all makes sense. Year 1, reset. This is the new chapter year. You feel restless, like something's supposed to begin. Trust that. It's time to start. Don't hesitate or you'll miss your window. Year 2, slow, emotional, reflective. Things move quietly. You're being prepped to learn patience, diplomacy, and connection. Not your public year, it's your root year. Year 3, ideas flow. Creativity returns. Visibility rises. Your energy wants to be seen, heard, shared. If you hold back this year, you'll feel stuck and overlooked. Year 4, structure, grind, foundation. It feels heavy because you're building the systems that will carry the rest of your life. This is where Capricorn shines, but only if you focus. If you scatter this energy, you'll delay your rise. Year 5, change, movement, glow up. This is your shake the table year. But it can also be chaotic if you didn't lock in during year 4. Think upgrades, shifts, surprise success, or surprise lessons if you're not aligned. Year 6, love, responsibility, decision-making. You'll be asked to get clear on who and what belongs in your life. This is the year of emotional maturity. You either deepen or walk away. Year 7, solitude, spirit, reflection. It's a quiet year. The spotlight dims, but not in a bad way. You're being asked to look inward. If you avoid that work, this year will feel confusing. If you do it, you'll gain wisdom that changes everything. Year 8, power, money, status. This is your results year. You'll reap what you've built. If your roots are strong, this is where you scale. If they're not, you'll be forced to face what's unstable. Year 9, release, endings, closure. People leave, projects die, habits fall away. Let them. Don't hold on. This is where you prepare for a bigger cycle. Then it resets. Year 1 again, new version of you. So let's come back to where you're at right now. If you're in year 4, 2025 is not about shortcuts. It's about proving your vision. The grind will feel real. You'll question your path, your discipline, your pace. Not because you're failing, but because the universe is asking if you're serious. This is a test year, a character-building year, a setup year. And if you move with it, 2026, year 5, becomes your breakthrough. But if you keep quitting halfway, you'll be stuck in this pattern for the next 9 years. Capricorn is built for this year. You're built to withstand pressure, but only if you're aligned with purpose, not just productivity. If you're in year 5, this is a high-speed year. Say yes to aligned shifts. Cut what's dead weight. Move intentionally, not reactively. Everything moves fast. Stay grounded. If you're in year 6 or 7, it's about relationships, reflection, and truth. If you try to hustle through this energy, you'll feel like you're spinning your wheels. This season is about recalibration, not visibility. So what should you avoid in year 4? Avoid trying to go viral. Avoid rushing big pivots. Avoid working without direction. You're not supposed to say yes to everything. You're supposed to double down on what matters. And what should you focus on? Habits, consistency, financial structure, mental discipline, systemizing your talent, creating stability that feels safe, not just impressive. Because Capricorn doesn't rise by accident. You rise when you stop proving and start positioning. The world already sees you as capable. Now it's time to move like someone who's already chosen themselves. No more waiting, no more asking, no more overthinking. You don't need permission to lead your next era. You just need the discipline to build it. Let's be honest. What happens if you don't change? If you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep succeeding, but still feel like something's missing. You'll hit milestones with no one to really celebrate them with. You'll keep showing up for people who only love the version of you that provides, not the one that feels. You'll wake up on paper successful, but emotionally starved. You'll keep quieting your needs because they don't sound urgent. You'll tell yourself there's work to do. But deep down, you're tired, not of effort, but of carrying everything, and still wondering if it's enough. You'll stay locked in your own rhythm, efficient, productive, but disconnected, because control becomes a cage when you've outgrown the reason you built it. You'll become the person people respect, but never check on, the one who has it all together, even when you're unraveling in silence. And over time, that silence will harden, until one day even you forget how much you're holding, how often you've sacrificed comfort for certainty, how often you've traded your softness for survival. But that doesn't have to be your future. Let's flip it. Let's talk about what happens when you finally choose you, when you stop proving, when you stop performing, when you stop mistaking pressure for purpose, and start living from alignment instead of obligation. You begin to soften, not into weakness, but into wholeness. You realize peace isn't earned, it's allowed. You stop over-explaining. You stop fixing what isn't yours. You stop carrying guilt for not being available 24/7. And that's when things change. You attract different people. People who don't just admire your strength, they protect your softness. People who listen even when you don't say much. People who don't wait until you break to check on you. Your work changes too. You stop grinding just to escape fear. You start building systems that nourish your soul, not just your wallet. You lead from stillness. You move from clarity. You create with ease because you've finally made room for it. And the best part? You start to feel safe, even when you're not in control. You stop tensing up at rest. You stop shaming yourself for needing help. You stop calling burnout discipline, because now you trust yourself enough to slow down without falling apart. You become calm, certain, centered, and people will feel it. You won't have to raise your voice. You won't have to prove your worth. Your presence alone will speak louder than your past ever could. Capricorn, you are not your status. You are not your structure. You are not your silence. You are the anchor, the builder, the quiet fire, the reason things don't fall apart. But it's time to be the reason you don't fall apart anymore. You don't have to carry it all. You don't have to be 5 steps ahead. You don't have to earn what you were already born worthy of. You were made to lead, but not from exhaustion, from embodiment. You were made to win, but not for praise, for peace. And you were made to be loved, not because you do everything right, but because you're finally letting yourself feel everything real. You're a Capricorn. You weren't made to break under pressure. You were made to rise above it, with grace, with truth, and this time, with nothing left to prove.